You're listening to Owning the Buy Box, an IP Secure podcast. This is the podcast for agencies, brands, and aggregators who want to master Amazon, push out unauthorized competition, and take their business to the next level. You're about to hear a conversation that'll help you maximize your growth on Amazon by owning the Buy Box. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Owning the Buy Box. I'm your host, Dave Cooper. I'm also the CEO and the founder of IP Secure. Today on our show, it's the holiday season, and I'm very excited because we've got a guest on with a wealth of knowledge and experience, especially in the e-commerce, the Amazon space. And I think there's a lot we can learn. The guest that we have today is Nick Lawton, and he is the Amazon program director for Herschel Supply Company. And I'm excited because I think Herschel's an interesting, cool brand. Nick's got an interesting set of experiences. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Great to be here. As I've said before, a big fan of the show.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. We're lucky to have you. I think we try to get different perspectives on the show. We try to talk to different types of individuals, but each one of them connected through, the common thread of really being on the front lines of e-commerce. And like, as we've talked about, Amazon obviously is the 8,000-pound gorilla in the room. And I'm really interested to hear about your journey. Herschel's a cool brand. I know from us talking and looking at some of your past experiences, you came from, I think, Universal Music Group in Canada, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I started, as you can see behind me, I have a ton of vinyl. Huge music guy, still a huge record guy. I worked in music retail for several years after high school. It's the easiest way for me to get closer to music, and was lucky enough to be hired by Universal Music, where I became a sales rep. I was there for close to 18 years, and I think basically 6 months after Amazon opened in Canada, I started dealing with them. It became my account. They gave it to the junior sales guy, and I don't think anyone knew in my office how big Amazon would become. We sort of had an idea that it was obviously it was huge in the U.S. At first, people in Canada were a little reluctant to shop online, but it grew tremendously year over year and changed and adapt. I think what I learned is that whenever you're comfortable with Amazon, something's going to change. I think that's the biggest lesson in dealing with Amazon is that they're always growing and evolving and initiating new exciting projects, and so it's been one heck of a ride. And I'm taking that over to Herschel, my experience in dealing with Amazon, and it's those 18 years we saw a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of we went from being very heavy in the brick and mortar space for the music side to transition to e-commerce, and that's really helped me.
That's what's fascinating is you were working in an industry that was also going through massive change, right? In terms of how people consume music and how it's distributed, and everything, right, was changing at the same time that everyone's shopping habits. There's sort of a correlation there between Amazon's rise to dominance and the music industry's need to change and evolve.
I mean, we could do a whole separate show on that topic. I have a lot of good stories from those days. I mean, when I started, it was literally the tipping point. I think that would have been 2003 when file sharing was really starting to peak, and the luxury that we had of owning the format, that being CDs, had disappeared. So very rapidly that changed. It happened even quicker in the DVD side, the movie side. That happened overnight almost. For us, it was gradual, but yeah, it definitely. I mean, the sort of the industry was going on a downward slide. Amazon was on the ascent, and so it was interesting working with them during that period and seeing them grow as the brick and mortar, our strength was disappearing in many ways, and you would see the space in Best Buy go from 6 racks to 1 and to be in the back of the store. And Amazon was just constantly taking more market share. And I mean, by the time I left, vinyl was also the huge thing. I think we were selling 95%, 90 to 95% was vinyl that we were shipping to Amazon, which is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter asked me for a vinyl record for Christmas. And I was like, you don't have a record player. How are you going to listen to it? She says, well, I just want it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, they're collectors. Did she want a Taylor Swift record? Is that what she was looking for?
The Taylor Swift record.
Of course. That makes perfect
That's what
sense.
she wants.
Yep.
Oh man, my wife was one of the poor souls on Ticketmaster for 8 hours trying to get her tickets. She actually did get her tickets, which is cool.
Wow.
But I just thought it was so interesting to me that she saw the value in owning a record, you know, even though she couldn't listen to it. I just thought that was really, really interesting.
That's how dominant Taylor is. And I think you see that she does those exclusives with Walmart or with Target. A lot of those customers, I don't believe they sell record players there. Like you wouldn't actually be able to to purchase what you need to play the actual format on. But it's incredible. It just shows, like, I mean, that her and Adele are two of like the sort of outliers. You don't see that happen with many artists where they're buying formats they can't actually play. I mean, we see cassettes selling nowadays too. It's super interesting. Yeah,
that's incredible.
It is. I never thought those would come back.
I wish I had all the we had a whole basement full of vinyl records as a kid. You know, I don't know where those are. Those are gone, and that's unfortunate. It really is. And so it sounds like, you know, you spent a long time in that space, but the big sort of compelling event for your career at the time was this transition to sort of digital consumption, right? And having to deal with marketplaces like Amazon. Do you find that, like, in your new role at Herschel, it's the same, you know, sort of battle, it's the same approach, but it's backpacks now, it's travel gear, it's outdoor gear?
That's a really good question. It's 100% the same. And I would find that anytime I've ever been at any, whether it's a trade show or industry event, and you had a chance to speak with different brands all across the spectrum, whether they're selling batteries or backpacks or music, everyone has the same experience with Amazon. Everyone is facing the same challenges, and it all depends on the approach that your company takes and how seriously they value that business and what they want to do with Amazon. I think that's the big difference. I think it's pretty much night and day. I came from being at Universal Music. We're not so concerned with the brand aspect. People are label blind. People have no idea what label Taylor Swift is on. They just know it's Taylor Swift. So we weren't as concerned with protecting the brand, but we still have the same challenges in protecting our SKUs on the platform. So that translates like 1-to-1. But trying to keep it so that it's Herschel first and Amazon second, I think, is kind of, you want people to have that. You want to have that connection with your core consumer and have them, you know, trust you. You want to deepen that relationship. I think with Herschel, we have an omni-channel approach. We're very intentional on who we deal with, who we do business with. We're always trying to kind of strengthen and reduce any friction between us and our consumer. And that's I think the big difference between Universal and Herschel in my experience so far.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously the backpacks, right, are the big, I think, the product that's probably the most recognizable, but you sell lots of products. You know, if you go to the website, you can see at Herschel.com that there's an ever growing catalog of different products, which I think is really cool. But it's like that iconic design of that backpack, I think, is really, you know, you see that, you sort of know it's Herschel. And the company, surprisingly, this surprised me, is not that old.
2009. Yeah.
I think it has a nostalgic feel. So people think it's been around 100 years, but it's actually, you know, only, as to your point, been around since 2009. And and I know it was started by two brothers, right, in Vancouver, Canada. It is the company. I mean, that's where the headquarters still is to this day, right?
That's right, and they're very much involved. Jamie and Lyndon Cormack, they are absolutely fantastic, and I think that classic silhouette with a modern twist is what they came up with, and it's iconic. It's resonated around the world. I think from the top down, Herschel's very, as I said, intentional with everything we do, from where we manufacture the products, the craftspeople that we deal with, looking at innovations and design. It comes from what the foundation of the brothers built, and it still resonates today. And I think that kind of always informs how we make decisions. And it's been incredible to see. I mean, I saw the growth from being in Vancouver, being based here when I worked for Universal, and just seeing the rise of Herschel. And I couldn't be more proud to be associated with the brand, because it's fantastic. And a lot of like as I said, a lot of the groundwork that they laid in the very beginning, being very, very intentional, and actually just doing the best you possibly can, like always trying to outdo yourself. I think is kind of resonates throughout the entire company, whether you're in customer service, you just started, you're 21 years old, it's your first job, or if you're the CEO of the company. I think we're all kind of following their lead, and always have been, which is fantastic.
It has a less is more feel to it, right? And I think especially today, it makes it more recognizable. And I think on a platform like Amazon, that's key, right? It's clear when you buy a Herschel product, or you visit one of the stores, you touch the product. There's a lot of quality that goes into it. And so I guess for you, right, as someone who's responsible for really the relationship with Amazon, you have to translate that into the consumer experience somehow, which, right, to your point, is like not easy to do. Amazon's a complex web of all sorts of different, issues that you have to manage, right, at the same time. What do you think are like maybe one or two of the things that you think are the most important, right, to focus on if you're trying to drive growth on Amazon?
I think the most important is literally making sure that, and this is kind of getting into sort of inside baseball in some ways, but making sure that you are controlling the SKUs that you have available on the site, which means that you're the first person to set them up. I think that's literally kind of leads us into a conversation about, some people don't know that third-party sellers can attach themselves to your SKUs that you sell on the platform, and they can actually set them up before you do, if they have the information, if it's out there. So I think the number one thing is literally trying to be ahead of everybody. You have to do everything you can on the platform to ensure that you're first. You're setting up your SKUs first. You're well ahead of anyone else before that information comes through the wholesale side of your business to third-party sellers. And basically just working with Amazon and being on top of every single change that they put in. There's updates that come through every week. I think you literally have to just make it. I mean, there's a reason why Amazon is my main function at Herschel. It's because it's so important, and you can't have sort of multiple teams kind of sort of monitoring it. You need to have people that are dedicated to working on the platform and understanding all sort of the nuances and the changes that occur. Because, as I said, in the almost 20 years I've been dealing with them, I can't even imagine if I went back in time and told myself that this would happen, that this is the things that change, and all the things that they put in place. I wouldn't believe it. So I think it's really important to be literally, it's 24/7. You have to be on top of your game and aware of the challenges and aware of how Amazon wants to do business.
I think when I talk to a lot of brands that are older brands that have been around for a long time, obviously prior to Amazon's existence and e-commerce becoming such an important part of how we shop, there's a different perspective. It's a reluctancy to embrace Amazon because there are things that are happening there that are not helpful for people's business, whether that's counterfeit products or gray market product being sold, supply chain contracts, right, going out the window. But all that aside, I think the cool thing is Herschel, again, has been around since 2009. And, if you see the importance of e-commerce and Amazon immediately, like if you started a brand today and you said, Dave, I'm, launching this new consumer product, we're not going to sell on Amazon. I'd be like, good luck surviving, right? Because whether you want to or not, if you do actually achieve success with that product, it will be on Amazon.
100%. I think previous guests on the show have brought that up. I think it was maybe the first episode of the podcast where the guest was talking about Kirkland Signature. If you look on Amazon, it's going to be there. So you're naive to think that your product's not going to be on there. And I think it's imperative that you are aware of that. And you just know that Amazon is very customer focused. That's their goal, is to have everything available to everybody on every site that they have. And you just have to work with those within those parameters. And there are ways. I think if you literally understand the way that they work and are willing to adapt and change, and just know that you want to control the narrative about your products. You know what I mean? You want to have a brand store on Amazon. You want to show up as best as you possibly can. And I think, again, that kind of goes speaking towards Herschel's philosophy. Like we want to basically be everywhere our consumer, our creatives shop. And Amazon is a great partner for that. It's a really frictionless place for people to buy Herschel products. And understanding that we just have to work within the framework, and it's, it can be tough, but I think Amazon's taken major strides recently in terms of trying to work with brands. They obviously are aware of some of the challenges that have come up and aware of brands that have had difficulties. And I think that they're trying to do the best they possibly can because they want brands as allies. They want brands as partners.
I completely agree. The customer is king, and having great brands on your platform is really helpful, an important part of that consumer experience. So I agree. I think Amazon is absolutely an ally in what we do in the brand protection space, trying to keep our supply chains clean, trying to make sure our customers have a good buying experience. And I loved what you said before about, control the content, and like part of that is being first. And I think you can't always do that, right? You can't always be first. But beyond being first, I think if you can't control the content either, then you've got, a fairly big problem. There's lots of tools available, right? There's Amazon Brand Registry. There's different tools that are available to people. And it sounds like Herschel is a big believer in defending, your brand, I would think.
100%.
Both online and offline, right?
Yeah, I don't think we take any connection that we have with our consumer, our creative. I don't think we take any of those for granted. And we want to make sure, again, that we're showing up the best we can. And I'll take that further. I think it's incumbent upon brands to understand that a lot of the onus is upon them. Amazon is the way that it is. Amazon works the way that it is. I'll use it's football season, so I'll use a football analogy. It's, in football you have offense, defense, and special teams. You have to have all three phases working together at the same time. I think it's the same with a brand. You have to have your wholesale team, the sales team, whoever deals with Amazon, and the legal team all working together to protect the brand. And what that means is, on the wholesale side, it's tightening up your distribution network, ensuring you're not dealing with partners that are going to turn around and sell it on Amazon and compete with you. Your legal team is there to support you. And the sales side, whoever's dealing with Amazon directly, is working with those two departments to ensure that it's basically like a strategy that you need to employ to protect the brand and ensure that you're not, like as you said, controlling the narrative. You want to make sure that you literally look the best you possibly can. The ASINs are yours, that you own the buy box. And it's a lot of work you have to take it seriously, I think, is what it comes down to. And it's been great to partner with someone like yourself at IP Secure to track third-party sellers to actually get that information and to make an effort to try to get them removed from the platform. We have full buy-in from our wholesale team. I think it's a team effort, and I think you need that to have success with
You already know your success relies on your Amazon sales growth, and that means beating counterfeiters and illicit sellers to the buy box. But do you have all the tools you need to do so effectively? IP Secure offers seller intelligence to understand and root out unauthorized sellers and push them out of the buy box through simple enforcement actions that actually work, meaning customers will only see your legitimate products and shop from your authorized sellers. Learn how at ipsecure.com.
I agree. It starts with looking inward, right? That's really where the answers exist, because when you're chasing unauthorized sellers, whether that's through sort of IP violations or through letters, cease and desist, whatever steps it is that you're taking, you really are treating the symptom of a larger problem, and the root cause of that problem. Again, if the product's authentic, right, legitimate, authentic product, it is your own supply chain. And that's a tough lesson to learn. Eventually, companies, I think, that put their brand first force themselves to sometimes make difficult business decisions that in the short term may not seem like great options. Nobody wants to turn down a sale, right? But if the consequence of it is 5 years from now, we're going to be cleaning that up, right, off of Amazon or somewhere else. And it's why education's so key, because the person who works in that sales function, who wants to get that deal and wants to sell that product, they may not be thinking about how that's going to impact your ability to do advertising in the future on Amazon, right? That's a stretch for them at that moment in time. So it's like, I love what you're saying, which is you gotta let people know that there are consequences to these choices, right?
I think there's a lot more education out there now. I think people are a lot more aware. I think brands are becoming, they're realizing sort of the ramifications of not controlling that. I think 10 years ago it was a lot harder. I've been on the sales side where it's all about just take the PO, worry about, you're always chasing those targets, you're chasing revenue, everything's great, but there are ramifications, and especially in the world we live in today, especially with Amazon, you have to be cognizant that those taking that PO is going to have effects on your business. And again, it's always thinking about taking a step back and having intent on who you deal with. We want to work with the best partners. I mean, as I said, across the board, we're always trying to work with the best manufacturers, anyone that ships, the delivery drivers, whoever we choose to work with. We're trying to make sure that we have a great relationship with them, that we're working together to further the brand, to further Herschel, and to get it in the hands of our trusted creatives. I think that's a huge part of it. And again, it's easy, and I feel sorry for brands that there's silos that exist within organizations where different departments aren't talking to each other. I think that's one of the main things. I've seen that happen over the years where it's obvious that sales and marketing don't talk, wholesale and digital operations aren't in sync, and that's just going to lead to a whole bunch of problems. So yeah, I think looking inward is the first step in terms of protecting your brand. You need to have everyone working together and kind of pulling the sled forward at the same time.
And hopefully you start that culture, those processes, right, as early in the brand's development processes as you can. I mean, like I said, I realize for a lot of companies that ship has sailed, but if you're lucky enough to be part of a brand, right, that's growing quickly and is fairly young, you have time to kind of really put that infrastructure in place. I mean, at the end of the day, Amazon is a place for consumers to go and to buy product, like you said, and they want the widest selection possible and the best customer experience that's possible. But they're not going to manage our supply chains for us, right? Soup to nuts. So if someone else shows up with product and they're competitively priced and they're a legitimate seller, and they pay their taxes and they're following the rules, you may be stuck with them, right? I mean, that's just part of it. But I think what we're saying is there is a way to fight back against the gray market problem, which is that infrastructure, right? Know who you're selling to, have the right agreements in place, and try to stop the bleeding and control where your product is sold. And I love that for Herschel, everywhere you engage the brand, it's a very, first of all, it's universally the same and very distinct and specific, and curated in a way that, again, brings back that nostalgic feeling that the brand gives you. I want that on Amazon when I look at the images and I'm buying the product, the same way I want it, when I walk into a retail store, right? A Herschel store, and look at the products in person.
It's the same thing. People don't have that. People don't make that distinction. And I think that's a huge part of it, is that you literally have that connection with those customers. And as we've talked about earlier, it's whether you want it or not, your product's likely going to be on the platform. So if you want your brand to look the best it possibly can, you want to have the right product up there. You want to have your brand store looking great. You want those customers who trust you, who may have already purchased a backpack at some point. They're looking to buy something. They're looking to buy a hip pack or a beanie or something. They're going to go and they're going to trust that the product's going to be the right product. It's going to be from you when they see it on the site. So it's incumbent upon us to do the best job we can to protect that on Amazon. And I think that's literally what we're talking about, is we want to make sure that every touch point that we have with our creative, with our customer, that we're doing the best job we possibly can. And again, Amazon, it's not always easy. I mean, I think, you said counterfeit. I mean, I think we're flattered at some points if there's counterfeit product. Obviously we don't like it, but it means that the brand is resonating. Obviously it's sort of like it's a sign of how much people value it. And I'll say this too. I think when I started with the company, I don't think I really was aware until I started working for Herschel. When I'm out and about, when I'm going shopping, when I'm on the street, when I'm taking an Uber, how many people have the iconic those backpacks? And it's especially in Vancouver, obviously it's home base, but it kind of always brings home to me how important the brand is and how many people love it. And so I want to do the best job I possibly can to represent that in the best way possible.
In the long run, it benefits you because you can maintain you can maintain growth for the company because the brand has been preserved to a point where consumers will seek it out. And in some cases, price is no longer an objectionable thing, for a consumer. When you want something and you want a Herschel backpack, you're not worried about, right? You just want it to be a Herschel backpack. So I think that's pretty powerful. And again, Amazon is where, like 60 or 65% of all, consumer searches are starting on Amazon. So to ignore it or not treat it as important as a retail store, I think is a mistake, right? No question.
Yeah, it's a search engine. That's where people, if anyone is into anything, whether it's music, it doesn't matter what it is. If someone hears that they should be investing in a pressure cooker, they'll probably go to Amazon and look it up and just see what, you know what I mean? That's sort of, it's crazy that that has evolved and changed so much since I started dealing with them. It's literally become the go-to resource. I don't even know if people Google it. Just go to Amazon. If they're looking, if they have any interest in potentially purchasing something, that's the first place they look. And that just speaks to what we're talking about. You better be showing up well and have your brand well represented on there, because they look it up and things aren't looking great, or there's some, whether it's an image or the detail page doesn't look the way it's supposed to, or there's something funky looking about it, someone else is selling your product. That's you in terms of, that's what the consumer is looking at, right? So I think it's super important.
That's the metric I look at, is not sales volume or gross merchandise volume, right? There's always these articles about, like, is it Amazon? Is it Walmart? Target's, kind of up and coming, and, everybody wants to be a marketplace, right? And all that's great. And I think that news is interesting to me, but it's really, like you just said, when they get that initial thought in their brain, I want to buy something. As long as Amazon's the first destination, whether they make the sale there or not, makes it super, super important.
Oh, big time. And then there's also, there's the countless millions of people that are literally in that Amazon ecosystem. They have Prime, that's where they get their streaming. They listen to music through Amazon. They have all the devices in their home. My brother uses, he's always telling Alexa to set the timer every time I'm on the phone with him. He cooks a lot. So it's, when you're in that ecosystem, it's literally, and it grows every year. Obviously, they just keep getting bigger. So it's paramount that you literally, again, I think just try to show up the best way that you can. And again, you need to use all the tools at your disposal, like you said, brand registry, working directly with Amazon, setting your product up early, and then having partners like yourselves that help us figure out what the activity is going on with our SKUs, with our ASINs on the site, and try to eliminate those bad actors from taking your business. I mean, when you lose business, when you lose the buy box, it's impacting forecasting. It's impacting revenue, of course. It's impacting the amount of money that you get in your advertising budget. It's touching all of your business. And I think, based on previous episodes, it's crazy that companies weren't taking it seriously until now. That people were kind of asleep in terms of not recognizing the threat that this posed to them and sort of the damage it can do to your brand.
That's a great point. And I think part of the problem is like the brand protection industry needed to evolve from, technology designed to do massive scraping across hundreds of platforms to more specialized platforms that focused on specific places like Amazon. Amazon's big enough and important enough to everybody's business to get a special tool, right? If you need a special tool. And Amazon runs different. If I'm scraping hundreds of platforms, I'm incapable of really also pulling in analytics that enable me to identify which sellers are the most important, right? Because I'm just going in and I'm kind of grabbing everybody. And then I'm attempting to clean it up without really understanding. And so what happens is people spend a lot of time chasing sellers, on page 50 of an Amazon, product search, and they may be successful in removing them, but it doesn't have an impact on their revenue or the consumer experience because nobody's looking at that content. Like, I'm telling you right now, as cool as I think Alibaba is, most consumers in North America are not going to Alibaba to buy, right, their favorite backpack or their favorite whatever item. They're just not doing it. And so you could spend millions of dollars chasing counterfeiters on Alibaba. And that's important work. I don't want to say it's not important, because it is, and it needs to happen, but don't expect it to uplift your revenue or improve your consumer experience. So I think brand protection as a space is evolving to specialization, where brands that operate in different places, digital piracy is another great example of this, right? You need different types of technology and expertise to kind of be really good at stopping digital distribution versus physical products, right, on a place like Amazon.
That's right. It's interesting too, because I think I'm surprised, to be honest, that it's taken this long for that the brand protection space to evolve. Obviously you would know more than I, having been doing it for so long, and sort of banging that drum on that side of the business. But it's also, again, I think it's incumbent upon it was the brands that were kind of asleep, or companies not really recognizing it, or it was a smaller part of their revenue. And now that it is, everyone's kind of, the CEO's going, wait a minute, they're seeing a line item on the revenue slide, and they're going, we need to do something about this. Why are sales down? Why is this happening?
Most of them don't even know what they're losing.
That's right.
Because the problem is analyzed through the lens of legal and risk mitigation only. And I think I agree that legal is critically important in this process, But to not have e-commerce at the table, also explaining how this impacts the company's growth and their sales and their, consumer sentiment, is sort of like ignoring half of the consequences of what's happening. So I think that's changing, Nick. I mean, I think, and for younger brands like Herschel, you guys get it, right, really quick because, you're, I think, much more focused on the importance of Amazon and the importance of e-com. But it's a different discussion, when you're talking to a $1 billion brand that, may still make most of their actual revenue offline, right? Primarily through distribution relationships and wholesale relationships, like you were saying earlier. It's tough. Those are tough habits to break, right?
And it's also like turning around like a massive ship on a dime. Like it's hard for them to pivot that quickly too. I think I was very pleasantly surprised. I don't think I was surprised necessarily, but from the moment I joined Herschel, I knew that they were serious about this. I knew that they wanted everyone to work together. The legal team was all over it right away. And that was the discussion right as soon as I joined. Like, how do we all work together? We get, as I said, wholesale is a part of it. We're having those discussions, and yeah, you need to have a full on approach. You need to take it seriously, and you need to literally, I think, just devote some resources to it. You need to
and stay focused.
That's right.
Stay focused on where your customer actually interacts with you. And there's not that many places for most brands, right? When legitimate places where they interact with you, everybody gets focused on the new shiny thing. TikTok is the new, I guess, shiny thing. And I'm not saying ignore it. I'm just saying until that's where the majority of your revenue comes from and where you're selling the majority of your products, it shouldn't get the majority of your focus. It just shouldn't.
That's a very good point too. And I think, as I mentioned, it's also just being aware that people, on any device, any second, someone can look up Herschel on Amazon. Anyone can look up your brand. It's not, you're not getting dressed, going to the store, looking for something. It's literally like instantaneous. So that is, for many consumers, it's the first time they see something. And you just need to recognize that, and you need to show up the best possible way that you can. I think I've been hammering that the entire conversation today, but it's paramount, and I'm very glad to be working and representing a brand that takes that seriously, because you can see people that don't. It's obvious if you're just on Amazon as a customer, you can see cracks in certain brands and their approach. You can see things are kind of not the way that they should be. You look up something and you can tell that they probably don't have that direct relationship with Amazon, or someone is not actively working with them to ensure they look the best that they can. And it's a bad customer experience. And we want to avoid that in any way, shape, or form, whether it's at one of our retail stores, on our own e-com site, or on Amazon. They're all super important. They're all critical. You have to have that omni-channel view of the way that you do business, I think.
And make it consistent.
Oh, and that's, 100%.
I think
Yeah.
It's a big part of your, I think, Herschel's success, again, is that consistent, sort of look and feel and experience that you get. So obviously Black Friday's over. We're in the holiday season. How do you think it's going, for Herschel so far?
We just had a tremendous Black Friday, Cyber Monday. From the figures I've seen, it looks like it's probably one of the best that we've ever had, which is very heartening. Coming out of COVID, last year was, we were still sort of in the COVID was lessening, but the pandemic was still very much part of our lives. And I think what we're seeing is a tremendous reaction. I think people were wanting to buy Herschel products. They waited. They saw what we had on offer, and they purchased a ton of it. And it was really, I think it bodes well for the future. I think from what I've seen, it was one of the best ever, and I think it really is resonating throughout the company that that the future is bright.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also a testament to, again, if you really take care of the brand and you differentiate from your competition and you have laser focus on those intersecting points where the consumer makes the buy, makes that evaluation, it pays dividends. Because when we're in a recession, if we are, I don't know if we are, and nobody seems to know, but it's all they talk about.
That's right.
And it's funny because whenever we're in a tough economic environment, they start to measure Amazon not in is it shrinking, but it only grew this much, right? Instead of 20% year over year growth, it was only 11% year over year growth. Most companies would be pretty happy with 11% growth year over year.
Yeah.
But I guess for some, that's not, what the public wants to see, or at least Wall Street wants to see. But all that aside, I mean, again, to me, these are more dividends, right? Of being a good steward of the brand and doing the right thing and doing it consistently across those endpoints. Is when things are not looking so hot and the economy's not so bright, people, are still going to make those purchases and still engage with those brands. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you guys are having such a successful holiday season.
It's been tremendous, and it's also, I think it's just a credit to our teams that work internally, to our e-com teams, to our marketing teams. Everyone really pulled together, and again, that's what it takes. I think that's the easiest lesson I could give. It's not easy in practice necessarily all the time, but just you have to have everyone functioning and working together. You have to have that internal communication. Everyone is pulling the same direction, and that was obvious. I think that was really reflected on the success that we had over the past week. Is that the messaging was consistent, it was clean, everything looked great, and then customers respond to that. I think people that are supporters of your brand, they're always looking. They want to see that consistency, and I think hopefully that's what we bring every time.
That's really good advice, Nick. That's great advice. So if folks wanted to reach out to you, I mean, I know you're not, willing to take anyone's call, but if they have an interest in Herschel learning more, about the company, I would assume Herschel.com is a great place for them to go. Any objection if somebody wants to ping you on LinkedIn and engage you,
no
through that channel?
No, LinkedIn's great.
Cool.
And yeah, I love having these conversations. It's exciting. It's really interesting. Like I said, coming out of the pandemic to see where we are. I don't think we'll know until 5 or 10 years from now exactly what happened over the past 3 years. But it's great to see there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and to see the past week was really, really encouraging. I'm really excited for the future and really looking forward to working with this brand.
Yeah, that's great. And congrats on all the success. I mean, it's looks like, you've had a cool journey, right? And you something, obviously music is something you're clearly passionate about. So I'm sure that was a great experience, right? Being part of Universal for so long and watching all those changes. And now Herschel, which clearly has a great culture because it comes through in the brand. And again, your area of focus and expertise is going to continue to grow. Amazon's going to continue to be the most important place, as far as I can see, at least for the foreseeable future anyway.
No, you're right. And thank you.
And you guys have done a great job, a really great job. So thanks for joining us today, Nick. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, sounds good, Nick. And again, anyone who's interested, Herschel.com is a great place to go, or you can look up Nick Lawton on LinkedIn. He's the Amazon program manager for Herschel Supply Company. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it, and have a wonderful holiday season.
You've been listening to Owning the Buy Box, a show from IP Secure. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share episodes that you love. That helps us keep delivering you the tools you need to sharpen your competitive edge and ensure your authorized sellers always own the buy box. We'll see you next time.